Kenyan election, because Kenyans are going to the polls today, and you've been having a look at what their papers are saying.
Hello to you this Monday, Lorna. And indeed, the Kenyan papers, why not? Because, of course, it's a historic vote, isn't it? They're supposed to be perhaps the most important vote for Kenyans for a long time, many decades. There, the Daily Nation is leading. It's time to separate the math from the myth. And it urges people in a message which amounts to, this is a D-Day, it urges them to vote candidates in peacefully. And, of course, as we've been seeing, there have been reports of violence with police officers killed. Now, the paper warns of corruption. It's asking, well, why would candidates spend so much money, fortunes, in campaigning for positions which don't pay anything like the sums of money that are involved? So it warns its readers about that. Still with Kenya, another paper, and I found this totally extraordinary, Lorna, I don't know what you think. It has an exclusive, and it's actually published the rough draft of President-elect Raila Odinga's victory. Now, Raila Odinga, the Prime Minister, is a favourite, a front-runner, along with the Deputy Prime Minister Uhuru Kenyatta. But there are 8 candidates in this presidential race, and the election is still going on. So that victory speech, which you can have a peek at in the Kenya Today paper, is saying, well, others gave up. This is the president-elect speaking here, but we kept the faith, knowing that in the words of Martin Luther King, the country will be free at last. Also in that rough draft of his victory speech, a quote from Mandela as well. So, of course, we'll have to see whether that is the victory speech that Kenyans will be hearing.
Well, the paper calling him there the president-elect, but of course we don't know who the president-elect is because the election is still going on. So quite an interesting thing to do, given the sensitivities there are in Kenya as well over those presidential elections. A very interesting piece there, Nicholas. But you're going to move on now to Iraq. The UK paper, The Independent, is arguing that the Iraq war has been forgotten.
The Independent is, of course, a leading paper in terms of giving investigative reports, and its front page is announcing a series of landmark investigations into Iraq, which it says is the forgotten country. Iraq, 10 years on from the war, is a failed state, it says. The inside pages, the 2-page spread, begins with the simple words, Iraq is disintegrating, and it ends. It's not the Guardian story about HIV. We'll get onto that in a moment, but it is the Independent's inside pages, which are, in that piece, it's saying that Iraq is disintegrating. The end piece of that article says that a professor asked his students in Iraq, what would you most want from life? And 95%, Lorna, say, I want to leave Iraq. And that series is impressive reading. It continues on Tuesday with a piece called How Baghdad Became the Most Corrupt City on Earth.
OK, so we'll be potentially looking at that tomorrow. But meanwhile, moving on to that Guardian article, we got a sneak preview of it earlier. Some good news on HIV and AIDS, apparently.
Well, that's on the front page of The Guardian. US doctors make history by curing a child born with HIV. Now, that baby was born in Mississippi in the United States. 30 hours afterwards, after the birth, doctors say that a strong dose of antiretrovirals resulted in a cure. And that cure is a functional cure, which is basically the virus goes down to a very tiny, tiny amount, is non-detectable, and the standard test will come back as saying negative. So there's only been one case before of a man in Berlin who has gone from a positive into a negative in terms of AIDS. So a big story in lots of the press, the front page of The Guardian there, as I was saying, and also a top headline for the Huffington Post this Monday, which has the lead, baby born with HIV functionally cured. And the comments there, I found quite a few of the comments in that online newspaper fairly cynical, actually, in response, but I chose 2 positive ones. The comments that I liked included, this restores my faith in humanity, and, well, as someone who came of age in the 80s, I applaud this. AIDS was like cancer back then. To have a cure possibly now, it would be something completely amazing.
It certainly would be something amazing. That's something we will be keeping an eye on. Thank you very much indeed, Nicholas RUSHWORTH, for that look at today's international press. Well, let's get a quick reminder now of our